Hey, what's up guys and gals? It's the Tyrant here and welcome back to my weekly Q&A session. I am not gonna lie, this has easily become my favorite part of the week. It's just so cool being able to interact with you guys and I'm having a great time doing it. It seems like you are too. And it feels like this has just gone from, this channel in general has just gone from me posting content and you making comments about it to becoming an actual community. Interacting with you guys is usually my most favorite part of my day. I've met a lot of, or had the chance at least to, interact with a lot of cool people. I think my subscriber base, that's you guys, in general, are just really awesome. And thank you so much for all your contributions. I'm enjoying this and I'll continue to do it on a weekly basis as long as you guys keep enjoying it. One thing I want to touch on before we start this week's Q&A session. So it's been brought up by a few different people who watch these Q&As that they'd like to see the names of the people who asked the questions or who have been addressed in the video to be listed in the description along with timestamps as to where those questions are in the video. I think that's a fantastic idea and I've mentioned that I will be doing that. The reason I haven't done it yet is because I've been really busy these last couple of weeks. Next week, I'll be on vacation. That's starting tomorrow. It's the longest I've ever been out of town. And so to make sure that you guys still get your content on time, I've had to do a lot of videos in advance so that I can make sure that there's a scheduled upload for my usual content. Like tomorrow's Sunday Fun Day, already done. So is Monday's video, which I think you're going to really like. It's not just Halo themed, but it talks a little bit about Star Wars and Star Trek. So definitely stay tuned for that. My review for next week is also up, my Wednesday review, of course. And I'm still working on my Halo 5 Guardians Legendary Guide for Friday, which is Battle of Sinaon. So it's been kind of crazy. So I haven't had a lot of time to go back and do all those things yet. Hopefully when I get back from vacation, I can start focusing more on that, but it's an excellent idea. And so I will be taking care of that, but don't worry. And so speaking of questions, I've only taken 12 of them this week because again, I've got a lot of content that I'm still trying to wrap up today before I go on vacation tomorrow. You guys submitted a lot of great ones, so if I didn't get to yours, please, please, please submit it next week or put it, leave it in the comments to this video, and I'll get to it next week. Make some sort of a mark if you can, just letting me know that you asked it in the previous week's video and I just didn't get to it. I'll make that one of my top priorities for the following week. And just to reiterate how this works, if you want to submit a question for me to answer in a video, all you need to do is ask the question, put Q&A or something in front of it. You don't necessarily have to. I can usually pick up on it. But leave it in the comment section below for this week's video for me to answer next week's video, and it works the same way. So for next week, you'll want to leave a question in that video for the following week and so forth. So leave a question in this week's video to be answered in a future Q&A. And that's all you have to do. And if you also keep in mind that I'm on Twitter as well, and that's the fastest way to get in touch with me. So if you've seen that I've missed a question more than once, hit me up on Twitter. A link to my Twitter account is in the description below. That's all you've got to do, and I'll make it a priority on my list because I want to make sure that I answer as many questions as I can from everybody, because I really do appreciate all the support that you've given me, and the fact that you're even participating in these Q&As I think is wonderful. So let's go ahead and get started with this week's Q&A. Our first question comes from Patrick Hild, and he asks, if you had to choose one, who would you pick as your favorite Halo villain and why? In last week's video, I actually answered Patrick in the comment section kind of subtly, letting him know that I was doing a video that I think he would like. And Monday I released my top 10 favorite Halo villains, or the top 10 Halo villains of all time. And so my favorite villain of all time in Halo is the #1 spot on that list, which is the Gravemind. Hard to beat this guy. He lives forever. He is infinite. And he's omniscient. He's everywhere at once. Anywhere where there's a flood form, he has control over that flood form. So he can span the galaxy. He can span the universe. You can't really kill him. The best thing you can do is starve him. And I know I call him a he. He's not really a he. It's an it. But he sounds like a guy. or, you know, maybe a woman who smokes too much. But so definitely the Gravemind, hands down, is my favorite villain and probably the scariest villain out there. So good question, Patrick. Our next question comes from Hitman0061. Looking for work, Hitman? No, I'm just kidding. And he says, Tyrant, if you were to choose, how would you design the Prometheans? Oh, this is a good question. First of all, I wouldn't do a lot of tweaking in terms of the design now, because I think they're a lot better in Halo 5 Guardians than they were in Halo 4. You know, I love the fact that there's now a mid-class unit called the Soldier. Knights have been toned down a little bit. So have Watchers, and Crawlers seem more like, you know, low-base units rather than just swarms like drones and so forth. So let's get a little bit further into this. One thing that I would definitely change is the little porting moves that the Soldiers make, the little mini teleportations that they make, simply because it's annoying. You know, they can jump back and forth. It's difficult to get shots on them. It just doesn't seem practical. It's not fun. It's just irritating. So I'd like to see that eliminated entirely. The second thing that I would definitely take out is the whole warping in feature that they do in Halo 5. It seems very fake. You know, it's not organic to the game. What I would highly recommend they do instead is have some sort of Forerunner or Promethean dropship, similar to the Phantom. But one thing that they could do instead to make it more unique to the Prometheans is maybe that ship could come by, you know, it has offensive capabilities like Phantoms, and then it would drop some sort of pod. And that pod could spawn in the Prometheans. That to me would be at least better than what they're doing now, because we've gone from science fiction to magic. And it's not fun anymore. It's not fun. One other thing that I would definitely add is a super heavy unit, and when I say, or for land forces, or for more specifically for infantry. And let me explain this a little bit. So when you look at the Covenant, grunts are seen as the light units, jackals seen as the medium, elites seen as the heavy, and hunters are ultra heavy. Again, this is specifically infantry, not vehicles. When you see Prometheans, you can look at the Crawlers as being light, the Soldiers as being medium, and the Knights as being heavy. Watchers, that's a whole different thing altogether. That's just some sort of aerial unit on the field. But I'd like to see a Hunter equivalent. Now in Halo 5 we have the Warden Eternal. I don't know if he's going to be in Halo 6, but I would like to see a heavy unit that appears about as often in the games you see the Warden. Something that's tougher to beat but not impossible and doesn't show up too much. So that's how I would design the Prometheans. Thank you for asking that, Hitman. Our next question comes from 1337, Leet in gamer terms, Game Dev. And his question is, do you think that Rex have changed the developmental focus of the game? Do you think it would have been different if Rex were only tied to customization? Not really. It has changed the focus of Halo, but, you know, the only issue that I really have with Rex is that you can buy them. That's really it. I think Rex in their current form, again, I know I'm going to get some flack for saying this, but they're fine. You know, I think people make a bigger deal out of it, and I can understand making a big deal out of it because you can buy them. It's like a pay-to-win system. I think that rec packs are something that you should be able to obtain in-game, so that not only are you trying to get achievements or win or obtain certain armor things, but it's something that those are personal goals that you can set for yourself. You know, you can get that next rank rec pack, or maybe you get special rec packs from winning 10 matches a day or something along those lines. But I think there's something that you should only be able to earn in-game, and something that everyone can earn. Everyone has an equal chance, regardless of whether or not they have the money to buy additional content. So that's my review, or my view on rec packs in general. Our next question comes from Necromantic Energy Lord. I would not want to face this guy, but you know what? Sounds like a great Marvel villain. His question is, do you think that 343 Industries would scrap the armor abilities, at least for the campaign, to go back to the classic movement system and make the campaign better? No, I don't think that they will. I think that the classic movement system that you saw in Halos 1 through 3 is exactly that. It's legacy. We're never going to see it that simplified again. primarily because first-person shooters in general are moving in a different direction. I understand that there are a lot of people out there who like the original form. Again, I started with Halo Combat Evolved, so when they started with armor abilities in Halo Reach, that was really weird to me. I didn't really like them that much. Halo 4 did them better. Halo 5's thruster system seems to be a nice compromise between the new and the old. It's still a quote-unquote armor ability in a sense, but it's not nearly as imbalanced as the armor abilities that we've seen in the 2 previous games. So if anything, I'd say I like the current system. Do I like it better than the old one? Well, it's a different game. So, you know, it's interesting because going back and playing some of the older games, I kind of have gotten so used to the thruster system that I forget it's not there. So personally, I'm fine with the new system. I don't think going back to the old way is going to help Halo any more than it already, or it's not going to help Halo at all. If there are other issues with Halo, that's not going to be it. That would just be a small part. But that's a good question though, Necro. Thank you. Our next question comes from Hamza Jundai, and he asks, what Halo did you like the most in terms of friendly QI banter? Easy, Halo 3. There weren't lines in particular that stuck out. I mean, I guess the Marine line, Ghost Ride the Whip, whenever you made a really cool jump in a Warthog, that was pretty cool. The Brutes had some pretty funny lines too, even the Grunts did. So Halo 3 probably had the best in my opinion, closely followed by Halo Combat Evolved. Still one of the funniest lines I've ever heard from a Marine is, "I'm a cowardly fool." And no, that is not to be taken offensively by any Marines who are actually watching, but it was a line that was in Combat Evolved, and it kind of stuck out to me, and I'm like, how did that even get it there? But yeah, definitely Halo 3. So excellent question, Hamza. Our next question comes from Golden Elite 10. Oh, I love it when he asks questions. So he asks, do you watch Red vs. Blue? And if you do, what is your review or your view on the season 15 prologue and trailer? I'm going to answer this one flat out for you. For me, Red vs. Blue ends at season 10. To me, that was the perfect wrap-up to that story. And it's interesting what they've done because they've quote-unquote wrapped up the story a few times. The first time we saw this was in episode 100, where it brought it close to the Blood Gulch Chronicles. Then, you know, they started things up in season 6 with Halo 3, and they added a lot of cool new features to it through the, I can't even remember it. It's Reconstruction, Recreation, and Revelation, I think. So those 3 seasons. And it was cool seeing them progress with what they were doing, not just with the storyline in general, which was excellent, by the way. Season 6 through 8, in my opinion, had the best mythology behind it, but also in what they could actually do with the videos. You saw animation start, or custom animation, in season 8, and it just was wild. And then I thought that was going to be it, and then they started bringing in season 9 and 10, which were ultimately prequels, showing Project Freelancer, since that was a big deal in the Recreation saga. And they went even further with that, having completely CGI environments and scenes, and it just blew my mind how they went from just doing little gimmicky Blood Gulch stuff to that. So I can see how Rooster Teeth became a major production company. It's so cool seeing them, how far they've come since the early 2000s. But for me, season 10 ended it perfectly because it carried over from all the stuff they did in the Recreation trilogy, and they brought it so nicely with the close of how everything ended with the director and the whole Freelancer saga issue. It was a perfect ending. I watched season 11, and for me, it just took a step back. The only thing I remember from that season at all is Freckles the Mantis mech. That's it. There are no lines that stuck out at all. I wasn't nearly as impressed with it. I'm not saying it's not good. It's just one of those things where I would rather have a nice wrapped up story than to have it drag on to the point where you get sick of it. So, and that's what they've basically done with me. I'm not saying that, you know, their newer seasons are bad. I'm just saying, to me, the perfect Red versus Blue story ends with Season 10. I look at other shows the same way, like The X-Files. That should have stopped at Season 7. But no, they decided after that to go on for 2 more seasons, do a really crappy movie, and an even worse Season 10 revisit. And I'm just like, why? Just make one movie to close it out and let's be done with it. So I haven't even seen the Season 15 trailer yet. It may be fine, but like I said, Red vs. Blue, which is probably my favorite web series of all time for me, ended at Season 10, and I'm going to keep it that way. But good question, Golden Elite. Our next question comes from Rhythmic Knights. And Rhythmic asks, if you had the chance to change anything in the Halo series, what would you change? Couple of things. First of all, I would have made the energy sword wieldable in Halo Combat Evolved, along with the fuel rod gun and the Wraith. Again, if you play Halo SPV3, that mod, you can do most of those things. You can't wield the energy sword, but you can at least do those and a lot of other cool stuff. But in terms of how I would change it as a whole, honestly, I would have stopped the series at Reach. You know, even though 3 was my favorite game, I think Reach would have been a nice send-off for it. And even though I liked Halo 4 as a story, and I think that would have been a good close to the whole Master Chief saga as a whole, the whole experience from Halo 4, when you talk about taking away Firefight, when you talk about taking away campaign mode or theater mode for campaign, it all seemed like a step back for me. So honestly, I would have stopped it at Reach, and just I would have from there probably done something that I've pitched for Halo 6, where it's a much more open-ended game. You can choose your own path instead of going through a straight set of levels and choosing your own ending, and just making it bigger and something that could last for years. Something kind of like Destiny, but still not like Destiny at the same time, if you catch my drift. But it seems like at this point they're just milking it. So that's how I would change it ultimately. That's a great question, Rhythmic. Thank you. Our next question comes from Clone Guy 901. Is there something I should know, Clone? And he asks, should they do a Covenant game with elites? It depends on what you mean by that. If you mean from the Covenant perspective of the Covenant human war, my answer is no. I do not think so. Simply because one of the common themes of any Halo game is that you're never shooting people, you're shooting aliens. So I wouldn't want that to reverse in any way. If you want to shoot people, Call of Duty is your series, or maybe Battlefield. Now, if you're talking about from maybe the Arbiter's perspective and the Swords of Sanghelios and how they're dealing with the Covenant while Halo 4 and the other games are happening, yeah, I think that could be a potentially cool game to have on the side. So I'd be all for it. Our next question comes from Alex Gonzalez. And Alex asks, does this guy not know that Halo 6 isn't going to be the last Halo that 343 has said they're not making? Oh man, okay, this is all jumbled up. So basically he's asking, or he says, I don't think that, I gotta walk this back again. He says that he doesn't believe that Halo 6 is going to be the last game, that because 343 said it's going to be a saga, not a trilogy. I think I summed that up pretty well. Not a question that was really meant for the Q&A, but it's something that I've heard mentioned many times before, and I figured this would be the perfect opportunity to actually address it. So it's true. 343 did say that the Reclaimer portion of Halo was going to be a saga, not a trilogy. And I want to say a couple of things to that regard. First of all, yes, a saga generally means a series of games, and they've already made a series of games. You might be thinking in terms of just Halo 4 and Halo 5 Guardians. You forget, though, there's also been Halo Spartan Assault, Halo Spartan Strike, and Halo Wars 2. So there have been 5 games currently that are under the Reclaimer umbrella. This guy's probably thinking, no, I'm talking about first-person games. They're not going to do that. And there's a few reasons that I have for that, but first of all, I do want to say that they never said specifically they were going to be first-person games. You may have thought that may have been implied, but that's not what has happened. Remember when they said they were going to release a Halo game every year and everyone was freaking out because they were like, oh no, it's just going to be crappy Call of Duty clones and things like that, not realizing that these weren't going to all be first-person shooter games, but they were going to be different types of Halo games. And even in 2016, they didn't actually have a Halo game released, and I'll go into that in a second too. But the reason why I think the Master Chief / Cortana story arc is going to end in Halo 6 or whatever the next major title is going to be is, first of all, they can't keep dragging this out. Remember that video games are not movies. Okay, they take longer to make, and they're more expensive to buy. And you have to consider the fact that people who first got into Halo back when it was in Bungie's hands, more specifically when you look at, Halo Combat Evolved and Halo 2, an entire generation of people has gone by since then. Okay, that was 16 years ago. So people who started with those games have lives now. A lot of them are now married. They have children. My brother being one of them, and me being married too at that. And they have careers. Movies cost you $12 to see, and usually, if you're thinking like in terms of like Marvel, who have this big expansive universe going on, they release like 2 to 3 movies every year, and even then, if you want to buy these movies, they cost $12, or you can watch them on Netflix. But when you buy a video game, that's $60. And that's a huge chunk of money, not to mention time. A movie, $12 in a couple of hours. There you go. A game, yeah, that's going to cost you more, and it's going to take up a lot more of your time, which, if you have a career and a family, is a lot different. But that's not just the reason why I think that they're not going to do, or they're not going to add more to the Master Chief storyline after the next Halo game, but it's just not good business. Because to be continueds in video games, generally speaking, are not popular. Halo 2, that was one of the biggest criticisms of the game, is that they made it to be continued. So basically, between Halo 1 and Halo 3, you had 6 years. So people waiting for Halo 2, waiting for a game to wrap up, were extremely disappointed. Then they had to wait another 3 years to see how the story ends. And if you didn't like the ending, then that just blows it completely for you. You don't even have fun with it anymore. So, again, to go back to it, yeah, it's a saga, and there's already been multiple games released. The other thing that I do want to add to that is I honestly believe going into the whole Halo universe when 343 was first starting out, I honestly think they believed it would be more successful than it currently is. They made a lot of promises that still have not come to pass. One being the Halo TV show that was being directed by Steven Spielberg. That was announced 5 years ago. Guess what? There's still no sign of it happening. Right now, there is a bigger chance of my movie Shrine coming out before the Halo TV series. We've heard nothing. The talks that are going around right now are about the same as when there was going to be a Peter Jackson Halo movie. I think that after the bombshell that was the Master Chief Collection and Halo 5, I think these guys are really trying to step back and realize this isn't going the way they planned. And so they're doing some major rewrites themselves. That's why I think that there was no Halo game in 2016. I think originally Halo Wars 2 was going to be out in 2016, and we were going to have a Halo 3 anniversary for 2017. But after the reaction they got from the Master Chief Collection and Halo 5 not doing so well because of this whole expanded universe thing among other major issues, they're having to take a step back and analyze this and see where they want to go. They wanted to make this bigger than it could be, and they took it too far. Honestly, I think they're going to end things with the next major Halo game. They may do some side games after that, but I think that 343 Industries isn't going to last that much longer given the current state of Halo. But it's still an interesting point. And again, I realize, Alex, that was not part of the Q&A, that you didn't intend to ask that as a question, but I did feel like it needed to be addressed, and I appreciate you bringing it up. Our next question comes from Corny Grunt. Oh, that's a cool name. So Corny asks, a lot of Halo fans dislike the new art style, but do you think that Halo should keep the new art style, return to the old one, or try to go for a mixture of new and old like in Halo Wars 2? This is an interesting question, Corny, and I'm going to try to answer this as simply as I can. No art style has been the same for any Halo game, period. You may have certain things that look familiar in other games than in the more modern ones, but they've all been different. If you go back and look at, like, for example, just the Elites alone, If you look at them in Halo Combat Evolved, in Halo 2 and Halo 3, and then Halo 4 and Halo 5, it's not just graphical upgrades. They look extremely different from one another. Every Halo game has had its own particular art style. In terms of old versus new, yeah, I prefer the old stuff a little bit more. I do like more distinct colors on the Elites. I will say that I hope that I can recognize all the enemies in the next major Halo game, but in terms of whether or not they go with old or new, I say neither. I'd like them to have their own art style just like they've always done. So that's an excellent question, Corny Grunt. Thank you. Our next question comes from El Killer Taco. I can never forget that name. It's a cool one, bro. So Killer Taco asks, what is your most notable favorite piece of music within the Halo series? Hands down, it is a three-way tie, believe it or not, and one of them is actually in the newer games too. So don't hit me. But so I would say most of my favorite stuff comes from Halo 2, and one of them's Heavy Price Paid, and the other is the High Charity Suite. I think those are really, really good. I've actually, if you looked at some of the previous videos I've done on this channel, I've remixed some of the music and created my own stuff from it. So you can definitely check that out if you want to. But Halo 2 probably had one of the best soundtracks in my opinion. But I also like the song This Armor in Halo 4. I think that's pretty good. It does sort of remind me of the music from the original Halo trilogy, but it's got a nice haunting tone to it. And I just thought it was really well done. Nothing really in particular with Halo 5. I think Worldquake is probably my favorite track for Halo 5, but most of the best music that I've heard, at least, in Halo altogether comes from Halo 2. So that's an excellent question, Killer Taco. Our final question of the day comes from a person. No, that's the real name. And a person asks, despite all the hardship laid upon you, in parentheses, 343 dropping support, your accident, and the recent thingy. I'm sure he's talking about Maker Studio, and I'll talk about that in a second. You still dedicate yourself to continuing. What drives you to stay and continue doing this wonderful work rather than quit after being thrown under the bus so many times? A person, I'm really starting to like you, dude. You're pretty cool and very considerate at that. And thank you for asking this question. So this is going to be, all right. You know, three things really make me keep going. First and foremost, I love what I do. You know, I don't care what anyone says. And it doesn't necessarily have to be related to Halo, but I love making these videos. I love engaging with everything and just, I love expressing myself. And this seems to be a way to do it. I've been wanting to get in this field since I was 7 years old. I'm not talking about, you know, being a YouTuber. YouTube obviously wasn't around back then, but I've always been big into writing and the film production, and I finally get to do it. This is my dream that's happening. I've been dreaming about this for 25 years, and it's just so cool that I can finally do it. And I refuse to let any company try to throw me to the wayside or try to silence me. Regardless, it's something that has been a lifelong passion, and I just feel so lucky to be able to do it. Not everyone can do what they want to do. Not everyone becomes what they aspire to be, and it's an honor to be able to do this. The second reason, and it kind of ties into the first, is because of you guys. The best part of my day by far is reading your comments and being able to interact with you. I've met some pretty amazing people that are a part of my community. I don't really consider you guys followers or fans so much as I consider you community members and extended family. And getting to know you and being able to share your thoughts and opinions, that's been an honor for me. And it's something that I want to keep doing just because of that. You know, you're an extended family to me. And when I make you guys happy, when you guys enjoy something that I make for you, that makes me happy. And it's such a good feeling to have. The third reason's a bit of a funny one, and that's despite my parents and everyone who says that I can't do it. Those of you out there who are aspiring to be YouTubers or content creators in any way, shape, or form, if someone tells you that that's a BS dream and you're never going to make it, throw it back in their face. Half these guys don't even know how people end up making careers off of YouTube or social media in general because they're not familiar with it. They know nothing about it. They think they do, maybe because they're a part of another generation, and this just doesn't seem like quote-unquote real work. Yeah, it is real work. I can spend 18-hour days working on this content and still not be guaranteed a check at the end of the month. And the interesting thing is, my parents once asked me, and I know I brought them up already, I promise I don't live with them. I haven't lived at home in 10 years. But I still talk with them, and the question does come up, you know, why don't you get a quote-unquote safe job? I would like for any of you to define to me what a safe job is. Because if there's one out there, I've never had it. You are never safe no matter what job you take. There's always risks involved. There's always the chance that you won't be doing what you're doing a week from today. One of my favorite jobs that I ever had was working at a data center. I'm not going to say any of the company names here because I'm not going to put anyone on the cross. But that was one of my favorite jobs ever. I worked there for 4 years. And it was a job where I loved the work I was doing. I loved working with the people. You know, the staff there was awesome. The people I worked for were amazing. And not many people can say that about their jobs. I was on a fast track there. When I first started, I didn't realize that there were people there who watched my stuff, but had no idea that I was an employee there. And when they found that, it blew their minds, and they had me start doing, believe it or not, guides for their company. And I started moving up, and there was all sorts of promise of me being a speaker in Vegas and all this cool stuff. And 3 years into it, the company got bought out. Within a matter of months, not all, but most of the management in the region was purged. They didn't hire from inside the company. They hired outsiders. Most of those people didn't last. You could visibly see the change that was going on and how people felt about it and how miserable people were having to work 10 times harder for the same money, never getting raises, having to add new responsibilities that they'd never had to worry about previously. People were losing their families over having to work overtime. This was a place where there was a time when I didn't mind working 12 to 18-hour shifts. I would gladly put 60 hours a week into this job, but this transformed everything. I started getting pushed back. I started feeling that I had to be more defensive because the new people saw me as a threat, being that I had seniority there in terms of my knowledge, and they didn't want to lose their jobs on top of that. So I gave it about a year. And then I took an offer for a much higher paying job at a bank corporation. Again, not saying any names here. And I was there for about 6 months, and I was on a fast track there too, believe it or not. Even though I wasn't thrilled with the work I was doing, at least people still liked the general direction I was going. I was going to be going from a contractor to a full-time associate with benefits. And then the company went through some restructuring and I got laid off. It just happened one day. Now they gave me a month's notice, which is almost unheard of for a contractor, and that felt good to me. I was told in that meeting, they said, "You did nothing wrong. You're a fine employee, and if we ever get these openings back, we encourage you to apply again. And we are so sorry that this is happening to you." They also got me my next job, a higher paying job, might I add. And the first day of my job there was the day after my last day at the current one. That's loyalty for you. But that doesn't make that job safe. And for this final job that I had, the person who hired me, my boss, got fired on my first day. On my first day. I have never seen anything happen like that before. Now, the people who followed him were great. The only reason I eventually left that job entirely was because of the accident I had later, but it does show you that nothing is safe. So when people sit there and look at your YouTube or they look at your social media and say That's not a safe job for you. Define what a safe job is for me, because I've never been in a job that I could never lose. I've never been in a job where as long as you work hard and you dedicate yourself and you show respect, you're guaranteed to have it forever. No, you're not. And anyone who tells you that is a fool. YouTube isn't a secure job either. And as you know, I mentioned last week, my network partner, Maker Studio, who was bought up by Disney in 2014, recently had a series of layoffs, and with it they purged a number of their channels, 55,000 of them to be exact. They didn't keep very many, and the ones they kept, some of them I wasn't really quite sure why they kept them. Naked Eli is still registered to them, even though he hasn't posted content in over a year. And I mean, I honestly feel bad for those people, because obviously a lot of folks are now out of work. Those who had, and I'm not talking about just the network partners, I'm talking about the people who work for Maker Studio. They did a lot of good, you know, and I've got a lot of respect for their company in general, and I'm sorry that they're going through a mess right now. Obviously, as a result of the mess that they're going through, this also affected a lot of YouTubers. And it's been an interesting transition. People tell me that networks aren't a good thing to invest in because you're now splitting your profits with another company, not just Google. And I'm sure that's true in some cases. My own experience says differently. Being a part of Maker Studio helped me. It helped bring in bigger audiences. They helped reach out to other people to draw more folks in so that they could, you know, find something to enjoy on my site. When all you're working off of is AdSense, you don't get that. You know, so this is kind of an adjustment. I've been looking at possibly other networks to join in the meantime, just to see. I'll give AdSense a try for maybe a month, and if I'm you know, seeing the progress that I am, or the lack of progress that I am now, you know, I'll start looking at other networks. For those who are at Maker Studio, who are there now, who got cut, either way, I do wish you the best. And I hope you'll make progress either way. And if you have a dream, stick to it. Don't let anyone else tell you differently. But going back to the original question, like I said, I do it because I want to do it. I do it because I love all of you guys. And I do it because I want to prove the rest of the world wrong. So that concludes today's Q&A session. I really want to thank you guys so much again for listening, for asking questions every week. I love it. I appreciate you guys more than you'll ever know. If you have any questions for me, you can leave it in the comment section below, or hit me up on both Facebook and Twitter. Links to my social media can be found in the description. And just a fair FYI, Twitter is definitely the easiest way to reach out to me. So if you aren't following me on there yet, I highly encourage you to do so, and I really appreciate it, and I would be honored by it personally. Also, even though I'll be on vacation next week, there'll still be videos being posted, so don't forget to click that subscribe button for more video game related content every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday right here on MythicTyrant.com. Don't forget about Q&A Saturdays, because that's what today is, obviously, and also Sunday Fun Days, and I've got a really, really good one for you tomorrow. And again, guys, if you like this video, please share it with your friends so we can get even more people involved and allow this community to grow and expand. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have a great holiday. I hope you have a great weekend and week in general. I'll see you when I get back from vacation. And as always, I'm the Tyrant, signing off.